Hello, Starshine. My name is Liz and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe, and maybe check out my other social media as well. I'm on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. All relevant links are in the description below. Finally, before I begin my Simsational story, I'd like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is just Sims, hey. I'm not going to apologise for treating them terribly, if that's what I've done. But I do want to assure you now that although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now I've gotten that over with. Let's go. Today's story is a historical interlude, which is basically a random chapter of history for a particular story. I'll be adding this video to both the playlist for the overall story it relates to, as well as to an individual playlist of historical interludes. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the Alien Twins. Carlton Villareal just loved Windenburg. Its quaint and beautifully old-fashioned architecture really spoke to his stylish soul, and he was so glad he'd chosen this neighbourhood to buy his first home in. Carlton had said goodbye to his old life and was starting anew here, hoping to maybe settle down and find a new man to love. In the meantime, though, he had also started a new job, working as an apprentice of algorithms in the engineer career path, and occasionally painting in the afternoons to help calm down after work and avoid burning himself out. He loved tinkering around and creating little robots, but it was challenging cerebral work, and painting was relaxing. Plus, it helped him make a little extra cash. Carlton also enjoyed stargazing and would often be found out in his yard at all hours of the night. He had even discovered a few stars. Truth be told, Carlton Villareal was a little socially awkward, and as much as he dreamed of somehow magically falling in love, he was far too shy to actually put himself out there and pursue anything. So he had to fill his spare time in somehow. He'd always thought of stargazing as a rather benign hobby, harmless and helpful in that it helped him gain logic, which was important for his job. And of course, Carlton, like every other sim, had at some stage in his life wondered if there was other life out there in the universe somewhere. But he'd never in his wildest wanderings expected to find out firsthand. However, one dark and cloudy spring night during his first year of living in Windenburg changed all that and Carlton's life forever, as suddenly he heard a strange electronic warbling sound. A bright light struck him from above and began to draw him up, into the sky. As he rose above the rooftops of Windenburg, Carlton couldn't believe it. He was being abducted by aliens. Carlton never knew for sure what happened during that next day and a half. He was eventually deposited back on his own planet, right back to his own front yard. This was obviously not their first abduction, but he had very little recollection of his time in the sky. Just flashes of syringes, blue, green and purple faces, bright lights and strange pains. He swore never to speak of the matter to anyone else, and barely wanted to admit it to himself, but that was before the morning sickness began. Carlton didn't know what was going on at first, of course. How could he have? Men weren't supposed to get morning sickness because Who ever heard of a pregnant man? There was no doubting the matter, though. Like it or lump it, possible or impossible, sane or insane, Carlton Villareal had been abducted by aliens and returned home pregnant. He had no idea what with. Would it even be human or alien? Sometimes, like the first time he felt it kick, a light blue orbing light would hover outside his stomach, and Carlton's heart would swell with a confused, scared kind of warm feeling. He didn't know if he could love his baby or not, didn't know what he or she would come out as, or even, gosh, how would it come out? As his stomach grew and grew and grew, Carlton got more and more scared. He didn't have a birth canal, shouldn't have a uterus, couldn't theoretically be pregnant with the child he very obviously was. What was he going to do? Finally, at week 36 of his inexplicable, impossible alien pregnancy, Carlton broke down and took himself to hospital. It was terrifying. At first, they didn't believe him, tried to call a psych consult in, but when he lifted his shirt to show the imprint of a hand pushing out of his stomach, suddenly everything changed and they were paging obstetrics instead. That first consult with Dr. Amber certainly was awkward, especially that whole "what the heck, is this a prank? How is this real life?" segment of the meeting. But once they got through that, Carlton began to feel a little more confident about the situation. Obviously, this was really weird, but after a few ultrasounds, Dr. Amber seemed certain that she could do this. He hadn't known it, having scrimped on the prenatal care, but Carlton had been pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl he named Lloyd and Brooklyn. Their amniotic sac had been rather cleverly grafted with some substance onto and into the outer lining of his stomach, and that graft had dissolved as soon as the open air hit. A simple whoosh, and his stomach had released his children safely and easily. All Dr. Amber had had to do, really, was cut open and then sew him back up again. He didn't know what to expect, especially after that dramatic initial admission to the hospital. But the twins were then declared perfectly healthy, normal Sims, albeit purple-skinned Sims, and Carlton was somehow sent home with them, almost with no fuss at all. Oh, there had been some quick interview with a journalist, and then an even quicker meeting with some mysterious man from the government who emphasised discretion in the future. But overall, Carlton got the distinct impression that this sort of thing happened all the time. Going home to become a single father of twin alien sim hybrid children was certainly an adjustment for Carlton. The babies had such a strange, haunting cry that he ended up having to move downstairs to his own spare Murphy bed just so he could get some sleep. He didn't mind, though. He loved his children so much he would do anything for them. Raising the twins was the unexpected highlight of his life. Being a gay man, Carlton had never really given much thought to the idea of having children, always assuming he'd not be able to have any. But now that he had not just one, but two, he was surprised to find himself really enjoying the experience. Naturally, there were a lot of challenges to overcome. He had to hire a nanny, and although he'd had a few promotions since he moved to Windenburg, money was always kind of tight. And Carlton was still lonely at the end of the day. Lloyd and Brooklyn were amazing, but They weren't able to help support him mentally and emotionally the same way a partner could have. If only he could find love. And that brings us to the end of this historical interlude, The Alien Twins. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. If you're a Sims player too and you'd like to download any of my characters to play for yourself, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. And hey, maybe think about sharing my channel with a friend. Or don't. It's your life. Anyway, bye.